Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bazile. Welcome to another developer interview. Once again, we have Mr. David Reid of Meta Arcade. How's it going, sir?
Hey, everybody, how you doing? Thank you, Baz, for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Now, there's been some interesting news over the last, you said, I think, 36 hours. And
That's about right.
this is actually really cool. You are the one out of six finalists at the MGF Venture Den. Did I say that correctly?
You got it right.
Okay.
MGF standing for the Mobile Games Forum, and it's a conference that they do. They do a few around the world. There's one in the UK, one in Shanghai, and the North American one in Seattle.
Okay.
And yeah, it's coming up in just a couple weeks. I originally was not 100% certain that I was going to be able to go, and then shortly as the deadline approached, it's like, oh yeah, actually I think this works. It's here in Seattle. It's easy to get a free pass if you're an indie developer. The big companies have to pay
Right.
their share, and I think that's fine. And as I got the acknowledgement of like, hey, welcome to the forum. Here's your credentials, and please note that the deadline is quickly approaching for our Venture Den competition. I
Hmm.
mean, this was literally, it's all been under a week ago that I got the news.
Wow.
Quickly whipped out an application, sent it in, got it in for Friday the 30th, and found out Tuesday morning that we're one of six finalists. So here we go.
That dude, that now, in your press release, you said it was kind of like a Shark Tank style thing, where you had about 5 minutes to kind of present yourself, then about 2 minutes to like answer some hard hitting questions, and then it's just kind of all based off of that. So who's going to be your right hand man in this adventure here?
Well, it's here's what I would tell you. I have been working on the pitch materials for some time now, just getting things together in terms of how to explain Meta Arcade to an audience. And in putting that together, I've had a lot of help. I've had help on the visual design of it. I've had help with other friends who are in the investment community and who are working at other startups.
Hmm.
People I've worked with through the industry and over the years, and so I would say I've had a lot of good feedback to help crystallize this thing into a particular message and a pitch.
Right.
That said, I had no idea that I would be pitching live quite so soon. And it's a great opportunity, and I'm super excited about it. And really, it stems from, I think, the idea itself and what's going on in the marketplace, plus the success that we had at Gen Con and particularly at PAX.
Hmm.
And putting all this together led to a story we were able to tell that I think is pretty compelling and distinctive among a number of other developers out there. And I think that's what got the attention of the panel. So yeah, we're gonna have to sharpen those pencils and those slides up a little more, and off we go into a Shark Tank-like environment is sort of how they describe it, right?
Now, it's funny that you kind of are going into this at like a Shark Tank environment because generally, like, backing or crowdfunding or publishing is either, okay, you sign a contract, here you go, good luck, or hey, help me fund all my stuff, give me money.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of a look at my cool idea, please, dear God, give me money.
Well, and to be fair, right, it is. It's not like I've never been
Right.
in the investment pitching stuff before. This will be a little unique
Hmm.
in terms of the mechanics of how they do it. Well, maybe not unique, but new to me. First time I will have done it this way. But it's just a more compressed and sort of exciting way to think about it, right? And I like the general premise of it. If you are trying to raise money from investors and you're not able to explain why you're compelling in a few words or a
Right.
few minutes, you might not be that compelling, right? And that's really what you have to focus on when you go into an endeavor like this, both in the application and then ultimately when you're up there talking to the panel. And so these are people that you speak with who really, at the end of the day, are seeing dozens, if not hundreds, of pitches every year. If you're not able to get through what's interesting and exciting about what you're doing and communicate a level of passion and authenticity about it, and show people on the other side that you're hoping to sell a piece of the company to for some of the upside, that
Okay.
there's a business here to be made, then yeah, you can't expect to get very far in the end.
No, I mean that's totally fair. Now, is this an annual thing that they do at the Venture Den, or is this kind of like a first for them? Because I've never really heard of companies like doing this style of funding.
Well, I will tell you that I am seeing it more often.
Hmm.
And as an example, when I saw the news of this and the application process, I went and did a little searching, and it turns out that they had a venture den competition in the Shanghai Mobile Games Forum that happened in April. And similarly, there were 6 studios, all I believe, from what I looked at it, based in China, and had a number of investors that were receiving the pitches. In one of them was NetEase, who people who are in your audience may remember. NetEase is an investor in Motiva, and so at any rate, it got my attention from that perspective of, okay, well, this is actually a pretty big deal, and I should put my best foot forward.
Right.
And now I'm seeing, as an example, there is a conference coming up here in Seattle. The Immerse VR AR conference is and as I was looking at that one, it turns out that they too are having a Shark Tank. They're actually calling it a Shark Tank, where and I don't know who the competitors are, and I'm not an AR VR business, and so didn't really think about that one. But interesting to see that they are pitching to firms like Vulcan Ventures and Madrona Ventures, who are local to the Seattle area. So I am seeing this happening more and more, and I think it is part of the overall change in both the digital and the social landscape, right? Just the friction with which these communications can happen has just plummeted, right? And if you're an investor, this is an interesting way. All you do is you spend an hour, and you're going to get 5 founders or management teams, 6 in this case, to look at and see if there's something that catches your eye.
Now, do you know who you're going up against yet?
They did say who the studios were. I am not sure what the process is about putting that word out, so I probably shouldn't talk about that.
No. I was actually just going to ask, how do you feel kind of going up against your competition? Do you feel that your product is, obviously it's unique enough in my opinion, because really no other company's kind of taken the adventure that you're trying to grab. So do you feel that not seeing your competition, that you have a pretty good shot at possibly winning this thing?
Well, look, I mean, anytime you're 1 in 6, you've got a good shot, right? And that's the odds aren't terrible. And I think you need to, again, come back to what does make what you're doing distinctive and differentiated in the space. To your point, I think the answer to that is yes. I feel very good about our ability at the core. Now, a lot of it comes down to that you do. It comes down to being able to answer the questions that the panelists have. A lot of times it comes down to what the panelists are looking for.
Sure.
And the good news is that, here we are at the Mobile Games Forum, and to go back to the other example, I think if we were pitching this to an AR VR forum, we'd do horrible. We'd do very, very poorly, right? But in the mobile space, I think we have a pretty interesting offering. And it is the sort of thing where I really do believe this, and it's part of the seed of the vision of Meta Arcade, as well as what I'm seeing in other businesses right now, that the notion of the consumer as a content creator is really fast, right? More and more people are turning away from what I like to call real jobs and are finding a way to make a living, or at least part of their living, doing creative endeavors, and that includes, folks like yourself who are doing Twitch streaming and YouTube videos, and that it is possible today to make a living, and sometimes a very good living, doing nothing but streaming. No one would have believed that was possible a few years ago. No one would have imagined that these platforms would take off at that level. And it's not that different from people writing little books for Amazon Small Press and selling those digitally. There's more and more of this happening, and so I do think we're maybe a little on the early side of doing this in the games business, and sometimes all it takes is to get a little head start and execute ruthlessly and flawlessly, and you may have something.
Right. No, I would 100% agree on that. Now let's talk a little bit about the Steam Dev Days. Something that they stream pretty much every year, and it's probably one of the most interesting streams to kind of watch, because Valve always comes out with like these just really stupid, crazy ideas that just somehow work all the time. Like, we're gonna come out with a Steam box. I'm like, that's the dumbest idea ever, and people just bought it in droves. We have the Steam controller. That's so stupid. Why would you? Oh, okay, everyone wants it. All right, great. So they're good at finding and spotting like different, really unique ideas. So with you going into the Steam Dev Days, what's your goal there, and what do you? I guess Do you plan on meeting anyone specific? Could you plan on accomplishing anything specific? Um,
Sure, super fair questions. I mean, look, Steam Dev Days. At the end of the day, if you are making a game to ship on the PC, you really need to think very carefully about how to do things well on Steam. It's
mhm.
kind of that simple, and it's not that different from when I was early in the games business, and you would have a similar point of view about Walmart, right? You just like, if you're going to sell your game, you better know how to sell your game at Walmart, right? You better understand the programs they have available. You got to understand how they order inventory, how they manage it, how customer service operates there. This is no different, right? Steam is the largest retailer and distributor of PC games in the universe as we know it, and
Yep.
they happen to be right here in Bellevue. I can't quite walk there, but I can certainly drive or bike there very quickly. It was sort of a thing where we are deep in development right now, and pushing to make milestones and get deadlines and heading into early access this month. The last thing I felt like I needed to do was go to a bunch of conferences. However, Steam Dev Days is a terrific opportunity, right? I've worked with Steam in a number of different companies now. We had a great relationship with them at CCP, a great relationship with them at Tryon before that. Steam was a little younger, and our relationship with Steam when I was at NCSoft was a little newer. It makes perfect sense for me to just get a sense of what that landscape is. It's more than just put the game up there and sell it, but as you see, right, and particularly as an independent developer, right, where we don't have the long history of a bunch of games that we've shipped before. We don't have the backing of a big publisher. Programs like Greenlight and Early Access are immensely interesting. Programs like Steam Workshop are interesting to understand, particularly for the business we're building at Meta Arcade, because we're very much hoping to be in the consumer content creation business as well. It's different, but there's a lot to learn there. Understanding their achievements, their trading cards. These are the kinds of things that, and in previous companies where the publishing discipline had a dozen or more people, this is something that likely someone else would do.
Right.
In this case, I feel like it's important for me to get in there and really talk to people, understand how best to do things, and best prepare Meta Arcade for when it's time to start selling Tunnels and Trolls and other products on Steam, to really know what we're doing there. And this is the place to do it. That's the goal, really.
Cool, cool. So I mean, it just sounds like that you have kind of all your kind of eggs lined up, but you're not counting them before they hatch, which is really smart because the old saying, "Don't count your chickens before they hatch."
Absolutely.
So kind of going from that into the early access question, you said that was happening later on this month.
It sure is.
I cannot tell you how excited I am for that.
That is awesome to hear. It's so much fun to hear. And I will tell you, we had a great time at Gen Con and a great time at PAX West, and just getting the reaction of gamers coming into the booth, playing the game, being very clear, hey, it's a prototype. We went to Gen Con with about 12 weeks of work. We had a couple more weeks to do a little polish and refinement going into PAX West. We're getting serious now about deploying that build to customers in the wild, as we would say in my parlance, and that these aren't people that are going to have the benefit of me or Chris Toomey or somebody else standing over their shoulder to help them steer through it. We're going to get good raw feedback from the community. We're going to learn how hard it is to download this game, right? It is it just like I think it's pretty easy, but other people who haven't been doing it like I have for 5-6 months during our development process are going to be asked to do it for the first time. And there are a lot of quirky things that I've learned that you take for granted. The example I'll give you is we are running. When we go to these events, we run the prototype on Amazon Kindle tablets. They're terrific price points for indie developers. They're great sort of form factor, UI, everything very nicely. But when you're not on the Amazon App Store, you have to go through a pretty meticulous process to install a foreign app on that device.
Yep.
Well, you need to make sure that when people in our community are planning to do this on an Amazon device, even though it's the Android operating system, the game runs just fine, there's another layer of stuff that we've got to make sure people are prepared for. And so just because the game is running well doesn't mean you're ready for early access. We are really going through the publishing and build process now, figuring out exactly how it is. We're going to, how do we teach somebody who maybe doesn't know much of anything about this? How do we get them clear and good instructions about, okay, you're on the iOS platforms, you're going to need to get Test Flight. If you're on Android, you're going to need to get Hockey App. But if you're Android on the Kindle platforms, you're going to need to get, you're going to need to do certain settings on your device as well, right? This is what's going on over the next few weeks as we harden and polish up the build process.
No, I mean, and I can attest that we got my son a Kindle Amazon Fire thing for his birthday, but it's the kid one, and the Android App Store is not there, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I do not want to use the Amazon App Store because it's just awful. So I still am struggling how to figure out how to put that thing onto my son's tablet because there's a lot of steps to kind of go over and process with. And I'm a computer nerd, so
yeah. And I would say that in general, right? I think it's ultimately Google is running the Google Play Store, and that's primarily how apps are getting out on the Android system. Amazon's an interesting alternative. They've got programs like Amazon Underground, which is intriguing. I don't think it's for Meta Arcade on day one, but I could see that being something interesting to do. And anytime you want to work with a big platform like that, whether it's Steam or Amazon or anybody else, their platforms work. And I am sure, there are very important business and technology reasons why companies do things the way they do. Mm-hmm. It's your job as a developer to figure out, look, if it's worth being on the platform, it's probably figuring out how to make it work for you and your fans. Right. And I think that's just a challenge we have, and it's one we'll embrace.
Now, kind of going from that to kind of a development question, how big is your guys' team now?
It is still, I think the last time we spoke, I explained it as being 0 employees, and that's kind of still the case. It's I have I like to call it a constellation of excellent partners that I work with in sort of a freelance and contracting basis. Mm-hmm. That includes people who are doing the engineering, the core. If I were to really boil it down, there have been 2 or 3 people who've done the bulk of the engineering work.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, and it's also about this, it's about managing your scope and thinking about it, right? And this has been one of the seeds that ever since we first talked about Meta Arcade, I think has been important, right? And I obviously I've come from the very deep end of AAA games where budgets are massive, teams are huge, hundreds of developer years are put into some of these projects, and they cost tens of millions of dollars. And like I said before, sometimes you get a big hit. You get a Rift, or you get an EVE Online, or you get an Ion, and that's great. And sometimes you don't. And you spend a lot of money and you don't quite get there. Being manically focused on ensuring we're not one of those case studies, to me, says get the game out there fast. Put something quickly together. Don't have every bell and whistle. Show the gamer what a prototype looks like. Get serious about the moment-to-moment core fun factor. And if it's not fun, either pivot or shoot it in the head and do something else. But if it is fun, then you've earned the right and invest more and take more risks, right? And so we're in that stage now where I'm feeling really good about the prototype of what I'll call the adventure player, right? People are sitting down, they're playing Naked Doom on a tablet, on a phone, and it's fun and it's working, right? What we haven't done yet is proven out the platform on the content creation side of things. And that's where we are building now, right? So as people get into early access, they're going to get that same taste that gamers are getting, got from us at Gen Con and at PAX. Few more bells and whistles and a little more polish on it and things like that. But over the course of early access, we'll be introducing more. We'll be introducing the persistence of a character and being able to level up. We'll be adding another adventure in there. We've announced that adventure number 2 coming from us is going to be the equally infamous Death Trap Equalizer dungeon, also from Ken St. Andre. And so good, lucky you survived the perils of Naked Doom. Your next stop is the Death Trap Equalizer dungeon. And, another reasonably high fatality rate adventure, but with a persistent character, you'll be able to, again, learn the nooks and crannies, go through it over time, and emerge victorious. But in parallel with all that is really the big idea here, of course, is the content creator, the enabling of letting anybody create their own adventure. The development team is not going to ramp up massively during this process, right? It is really going to be about building and executing a prototype of this experience on a very reasonable cost basis, and then seeing, okay, working, if the persistence is working, if the content creator is working, all right, now we got a ball game. It is time to hire, ramp up, build, polish, all the different things that you'd like to do, but not until then. Not until we feel like, and we can see and we can hear it from people that there's something here that's working. It's just too easy to become overly enamored with your own ideas in this space.
Right.
Go get a whole bunch of people on board and realize, geez, we just got feedback that I wish we had gotten 6, 12, 18 months and, 5, 10, $20 million ago, right? Let's not be one of those case studies.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree, and I think it's probably the smartest way to do things as well. So, okay, I'm kind of wrapping up here. The early access starts sometime later this month.
It is going to start this month. People will start getting emails soon. We're going to ask them, what platform do you want to play on? What device do you have? And make sure we sort of get a good pool of people. We're going to start with iOS and Android. Okay. PC and Mac will come later, but, we're mostly
no one plays on a Mac.
Come on. Not no one, Bass. Come on. Come on. Don't be hating.
I saw a video of a guy going into an iPhone store, taking all the iPhones and smashing everyone and running out. It's like, wow, someone hates Apple.
Well, someone's got some hate. Yeah, that's not. and part of what's important, I think, is that Mac and PC together are likely to be the platforms where people create the adventures, right? I think there will be people who. I imagine there's an important segment of the audience that is, call them the Apple loyalists, right? Who are going to own Macs and not PCs, and are going to own iPhones and iPads and Android devices. And when they sit down to play the game, they'll play it on iOS, as a lot of people do, and that's great. But when it's time to create the content, they may very well not be on the PC. And so we think it's important, to have kind of the robust view on the computer side, PC, Mac, as well as on the mobile side, which of course includes Android and iOS. That's where it really comes into play. How many people actually play the games on the PC and Mac? I don't know how to handicap that. I do believe generally the experience we are building is a lot more fun to play on a mobile device and lends itself better to that. Mm-hmm. But I do think the content creation side, you're going to want to be on a computer. You're going to want a mouse and a keyboard and maybe a second monitor and a 2-foot interface where you can really do a lot of stuff spatially. Right. I'm sure my kids will ultimately get to a point where they can type their novels on a smartphone. I don't know that anybody else is there yet.
I've tried, and typing it on my Samsung Galaxy S4, I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather have a keyboard. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of wrapping up the interview here. Early access is coming later this month, and then we have, what's the roadmap look like? What's the timeline for, say, the next 6 months of Meta Arcade?
I'll give you a few thoughts on that, right? So, number one, it is about get early access going. Like anybody prudent in the space should be doing, we're going to start that small, and we're going to ramp it up over time. Like we said, it'll begin with iOS and Android. It'll move on to the computers from there. While we're doing those things and deploying the builds out and getting good customer feedback, tracking metrics, getting a sense of how this is working, there are a couple things happening. Number one is, like I said, we are building Adventure 2 and expect to be able to release Adventure 2 to people during the early access period, that being the Death Trap Equalizer dungeon. I'll tell you, I think that happens before the end of the calendar year. That you will get the chance to take your characters who survive Naked Doom into Death Trap Equalizer and do the leveling up process in the middle there. Then in parallel with that, building out the prototype of the content creator, right? And we will do a similar style of early access program on that front to allow a small group of people who want to start creating things in and getting that feedback before we open it up again. A similar process there. Go well, and who knows, right? It's once you put that build in the wild, a lot of crazy things can happen, and you can get a lot of feedback you weren't expecting. I think in Meta Arcade's case, the odds of that being a big delaying factor are limited compared to other games I've worked on, where there's a big multiplayer online component. That tends to be the place where stuff gets really, really complicated, and putting the build out there in front of thousands of people who are trying to log in at the same time. We're a more of a single player experience now, so I don't anticipate huge delays, but you never know. Yeah. And coming back to that, assuming these things go well, then early 2017, we should be in a position where the content creation side of the platform's ready, there are multiple adventures going, and we head into commercialization and launch. There are other events coming up that we're looking at very carefully, and we'll probably make an appearance at. And but really, it's going to be like I was saying. Until we got the news last week, I was expecting this would be a much quieter winter period for us. But things could heat up pretty quickly here, and with early access going and the Venture Den competition coming, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys kind of have to offer in the next 6 months, and then obviously the game kind of goes from there. What, in terms of, I guess kind of like the last question I want to ask you is, and this is probably something you probably can't answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In terms of monetization and the price point of the adventures and the app itself, do you have any idea what we're going to see on that?
I actually will be able to answer that for you, Baz. Cool. So the content creation platform itself is going to be free, right? So if you want to create an adventure, you can do that for free. And it will be very much like a Steam Workshop kind of model. If someone buys your adventure, then the revenue sharing kicks in, right? And obviously the retailer, if you will, whether it's Steam or the App Store or Google Play or whoever, right? They're going to get their percentages of it. But after that, the revenue share happens largely with the creators and also Meta Arcade, and then in the case of a licensed property like Tunnels and Trolls, the licensor. But no cost up front for that. As a consumer, if you're buying adventures, right? So we got to tune a couple knobs on some of these things, but my thinking is that there will certainly be some free starter content to give you a taste of this experience. And we'll probably do, I really admire, I think a big part of how Riot grew their business was the rotation of champions in a free basis. Yep. I think there's something there. Well, we will rotate adventures in and out of a free basis to let people try them out. But at the end of the day, if you want to own an adventure and be able to play it with all your characters at any point in time, you are going to want to buy it. And my estimation of this is I expect adventures to range anywhere from $1 to at the max 10. This is not a $50 price point thing. This is $80 for an adventure.
Especially for mobile gaming. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the point, is to get into that thing. And I really, are there the possibilities at some point in our future to have microtransactions for cosmetic things or whatever? Yeah, probably, right? But at the end of the day, I think it is a premium business, I would call it, right? Yeah. Not at premium price points of like go buy a game for $50, but premium in terms of buying content. There will be free content. There will be purchased content. I really don't want this to become a gems and coins based economy, unless that's what the gamers tell us, right? I mean, we're basing it on people have been playing games like Tunnels and Trolls, like Dungeons and Dragons, like Choose Your Own Adventure books for decades. And there's a very proven business model there of I buy content when I want it, and I don't pay for other stuff. And once I buy it, I've got it. I'm not paying to have action points every couple hours, right? We're going with
please don't do that.
that is not the intention. And really, like I said, if the consumers and the community come back to us and say we would like to steer things this way, it's certainly something we'll listen to. But that's not our intention in the launch. It is more of $1, $3, $5, get you a good solid piece of content that you can play as long as you want, bring a bunch of characters through, and is playable in that kind of snackable, more mobile format. You can pick up and play it and don't feel like the clock is ticking and your meter is running and the gems are burning in the bank vault, right? That's not our intention.
Awesome. That is encouraging, because there's been so many mobile games where I start playing and I'm like, oh, I have to pay to continue? Well, this was fun for a while. I guess we'll just move on and try another one. But, I mean, honestly, I think this will be good for the mobile market. It'll show developers that they can make a lot of money by not screwing over their customers. And I think that's really important. So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent.
Once again, Mr. Dave, I really appreciate your time, sir. And,
you bet. I always love coming by, Baz.
Oh, man, thank you. That means a lot. Now, your website is metaarcade.com. Follow them on Twitter at metaarcade. Your Twitter handle, is it still at Pocothulu?
It sure is. I'm not changing that thing. It's been
darn
there for a
right
while.
You're not. It's the best Twitter handle ever. You can follow me on Twitter at Bazile, and all the other articles and things that we have talked about will be below the video on the description below. And David, anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, I just look forward to seeing everybody in early access soon. Again, first invites are coming out in in the very, very near future.
Awesome. All right, guys, have a wonderful afternoon, morning, and or evening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks.